chief. It was during this time Chief Holden brought 15 independent fire departments across Santa Fe County into one organization. There have been just a number of independent volunteer departments. His leadership and forward thinking gave rise to one of the largest and most comprehensive combined volunteer and career fire departments in the state of New Mexico. Chief Holden will be remembered for his leadership, honesty, and integrity. He really did contribute quite a bit to Santa Fe County, and it was for that reason in our first meeting following his passing, I wanted to bring this up and request a moment of silence. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Thank you for bringing this to bringing this up and allowing us to have a moment of silence and share our condolences for Chief Holden. Are there any other comments from commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Rudy.
Commissioner Garcia?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Commissioner Hamilton, for bringing this forward. You know, as you know, Chief, I don't know, I can't talk now because the Chief Holden, Stan Holden.
Stan Holden?
Yes, Stan Holden, good guy. You know, he's, like you said, Commissioner Hamilton, he's the guy that, as Manager Miller knows, the GRT tax has been getting Santa Fe County Fire Department moving forward. As you all know, we have excellent staff vehicles, and Chief Holden, Stan Holden, I'm lost for words. And Chief Holden, you're a great guy. And thank you, Commissioner Hamilton, for bringing this forward because I did not realize he had passed away. And he was such a great guy. He actually was headhunted to go work in East Texas to run like 10 helicopter crew, this and that. And Chief Holden, Stan Holden, lived in my community in Edgewood, and he moved to Texas. And I'm just lost for words. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It appears as though we may have lost Commissioner Rybaugh.
Perhaps we should just wait a moment for him to reconnect.
Yeah. Commissioner Rybaugh? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. I lost service for a second, but you know, I just want to, thank Commissioner Garcia for his comments and thank Commissioner Hamilton for bringing this up once again. And if we can have a brief moment of silence for Chief Holden, unless there's any other comments that would like to be shared with the board. Okay, hearing none, if we could have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you very much. So I just, want to give my sincere condolences to the family of Chief Holden. We're going to go ahead and move on to item number 1C, and this is the approval of the agenda. Are there any other changes or requests to the agenda? Or Manager Miller, did you have any changes?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any changes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Hanson?
I would like to move to approve the agenda.
So we have a motion
second.
from Commissioner Hanson and a second from Commissioner Hamilton, I believe.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm going to go to a roll call vote. Commissioner Garcia? Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yes.
And a yes from Commissioner Roy. Also, the agenda is approved unanimously. Next, we're going to move on to item number 2A. And item number 2 is the New Mexico House of Representatives District 45 vacancy. And 2A is the applicant presentations. Presentations are going to be limited to 5 minutes, but I'm going to go to Tessa Jo. Can you please announce our applicant?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Effective September 28th, Representative Jim Trujillo resigned his position as state representative for District 45 in the State House of Representatives. House District 45 is situated wholly within the exterior boundaries of Santa Fe County. Accordingly, the Board of County Commissioners has the authority to appoint someone to fill the vacancy. The term of the person appointed will end on December 31st. So the process to apply was announced via press release, posted on the county's website, and advertised via social media. However, it was agreed upon that we would seek out the candidates who were on the November 3rd ballot. There's 2 people. We had 1 applicant, and that is Miss Linda Serrato. It has been verified that she meets the minimum qualifications for holding the office. So, and she is here today and prepared to say a few words.
Okay, thank you very much, Tessa, and welcome, Ms. Serrato. We're going to go ahead and go to the presentation. Ms. Serrato, would you like to address the board?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for hosting today. I also want to thank Representative Jim Trujillo and his entire family for their service to our state and our entire community. And I want to say one more thank you to all the commissioners today for acting so quickly to fill in this space, or this open seat, I should say. As you know, the families in our district are facing a lot of new and unprecedented challenges, and so they deserve a voice in the roundhouse immediately. I launched my campaign about a year ago now, and I decided to run for House District 45 after having my own daughter. And seeing the few working families that were actually in the roundhouse and decision-making roles. And especially today, modern New Mexican families are facing challenges that when added all together are unlike anything we've seen before. And so we really need to make sure that we have more diverse voices at the table that can speak to the experience that we're all seeing today. You know, for me, I've held a lot of conversations with different constituents across the district, thousands of conversations that were first at doors and then later over the telephone. And through these conversations, they've guided my campaign, they've guided what I was thinking about, you know, already what my instincts were, what we needed, and the policies that people needed to ensure that old American pillar still stood, that if you work hard, you know, you deserve economic security. We stopped door knocking when COVID-19 came to New Mexico. And, you know, like so many other folks, my husband and I had to just change everything. Like so many other, you know, working parents, workers, students, everyone. My husband and I, you know, before the pandemic, were concerned about my daughter having active shooter drills at her daycare. And now on top of that concern, we're trying to just build any sort of stability amidst all the, you know, unintentional instability that's all around our world right now. And, you know, one thing I've found through a lot of these conversations that I've had across the district, or I guess I should say there's really 3 things. One thing that was really interesting to me was that how everyone just cares so much about their community and their neighbors. And, you know, whenever I would talk to folks on the phone, they're not just asking me, or not just telling me about what they believe in, they're talking about their neighbors and the struggles of their family members. Number 2, how resilient our folks are. You know, even though there's a pandemic, people are just looking to rebuild. They're looking to kind of get on their feet, finding when, again, there's some sort of stability that we can rely on again. They're not looking for a handout. They just want to make sure that they can create something good. And, you know, number 3 to me, which I think is really interesting, is that we really do come together on these big ideas, that our families are the center of everything that we're working towards today. So for me, that's been a big piece of this. I worked really hard to make sure that I reached out to as many New Mexicans as possible along the way. And I'm very proud to be endorsed by a diverse group of New Mexicans, including Planned Parenthood Votes New Mexico, both the teachers, the AFT New Mexico and NEA New Mexico, as well as AFL-CIO unions and the Rio Grande chapter of the Sierra Club, as well as many others, including Representatives Ben Ray Lujan and Deb Holland. So I'm very lucky to have those endorsements. But for me, a big piece of this is that we're making sure we're recovering, once we're able to, faster than we did in the last recession. As many of you know, what we had done before, we saw many other states move faster than we did. And that was very difficult, I think, for a lot of Mexicans. I have had the experience of working for New Mexican families for the entirety of my career. I graduated Stanford University back in 2007 and came to work for Obama's first election out in eastern New Mexico. And I started there, and then I continued to work. I moved to Capitol Hill and worked for Ben Ray Lujan on the Hill on natural resources and other issues. And then I also moved on to work for other folks. And when I came back to New Mexico a couple years ago, or a while ago now, we were working on ballot initiatives in other states to raise the minimum wage, and we were able to get a great groups of small business owners and low wage earners that were able to come together and support these raises. And then I returned to working, again across New Mexico communities that I really enjoyed doing or working with. And so these experiences have taught me so many things, just about again the resiliency of our communities and the hope and how everyone cares about each other. That's really made an impact for me, and I want to make sure that I'm giving back to the community that come home for my husband and my daughter and I. And so what is interesting to me is that we're seeing the similar tactics from the federal government in response to the economic recession that we're in right now, which is really taking care of the titans, I would say, of industries first. And I believe that it's our responsibility at the state and local levels to make sure that we're taking care of our small businesses and Main Street first. If chosen, to take on this role as a representative here, I would, think of this beautiful and historic and growing and kind district. I'll think of all these conversations I've had with folks along the way, and just working with people individually. That's why I'll put our small businesses first. I support ending the Social Security double tax, which is a big weight on a lot of our seniors, and easing the
Ms.
process.
Serrato?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but your 5 minutes are up.
Oh, well, thank you so much. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, Ms. Serrato, and we appreciate you being here. That was in the 5 minutes that you did speak. Oh my God, I'm very impressed. So I really, I really appreciate you being here. And I know that we have questions and interviews that some of the commissioners will have, but I would make a motion to appoint you to this position. But I'm going to also call on my commissioners to ask questions as well. So I'm gonna just go through the list. Commissioner Hamilton.
Well, first of all, if that's a motion, I would like to second it.
Okay. Yes. So we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Hamilton, do you have any other questions?
For discussion. I was also very impressed. I'd love to hear many of the things you said and your experience, because just to single one thing out, your experience working on the Hill with Ben Ray Lujan, I feel that, I think we had a brief discussion about this once, and you working, the effectiveness of the government can be so enhanced by working up as the state, being in the state legislature, need to work up with the federal, and also to work down, which is of course one of our interests, working with the counties. And so I just think that experience, it would be hugely valuable. What do you think about not just working with the feds, but working with us and other counties? Of course, I'm particularly interested. Well, actually, it's just us, because your district is entirely in Santa Fe County. So
yeah, absolutely. And in this seat in particular, it has a chunk of the county as well as the city of Santa Fe too.
Of course,
and so,
yeah.
one of the things that I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to say, but what I've always appreciated about the Roundhouse is the open door policy that so many legislators hold. And it's something I promised to every constituent that I've spoken to, every leader. And beyond that, though, I think the way we can really find successful solutions, how we can collaborate on making sure that capital outlay is spent in in places where it's desperately needed, is by working with all of you, because the folks that you all are talking to may or may not be the same folks as I'm talking to. And the more that we can engage, even at the city level, I'm friends with City Councilor Jamie Cassett Sanchez, and just again working with different people to make sure that we're really tailoring this experience and policy for our community the best I can. I mean, again, beyond an open door, I'll probably even text you randomly and say, what is your thought on this thing that just came up? That may happen, so you may have to be aware of that too.
Well, to be honest, that actually is really good to hear. One other seemingly random question, slightly different. Before we got on the meeting, I saw on the internet news that the White House has instructed Republicans to stop negotiating on any additional stimulus until after the election. That's going to have a huge impact. And part of my question is also to note that, given what you said, that the stimulus that was given to individuals, actually, it's evidence that that kept the economy afloat more than anybody expected to during 3 months following those stimulus checks, whereas, the 85% of money that went to big business certainly helped big business, but it didn't help the rank and file in the economy. And do you have any thoughts about surviving between now and when some additional stimulus? I think that's going to really impair our recovery.
I think that's right. And I think there's I think three pieces I want to address. So one, when I was working on Capitol Hill and we were looking at the recovery, we saw a lot of states accelerate their recovery beyond ours. And we saw places like Texas and Colorado and Utah is applying for grants rapidly and really doing everything they could to get every single dime available. And at times that we were pushing austerity programs that were really hurting New Mexicans, they were actually investing and actually building new things, so that it really moved places like Colorado, which was about neck and neck with us before the Great Recession, ahead of us. And so that's something I'm really focused on, is finding those grants and those stopgaps that we can. Two, I think that the Small Business Recovery Loan Fund was a great idea, but what we found so much is that it's been really hard for small businesses to apply and receive them. We've only spent 5% of that $400 million that was set aside, and since June, so that like 5 months period. And beyond that, 80% of the applications are being denied. And so we need to address that right away and make sure that's okay. And then we need to address concerns for working families. What's also set to expire at the end of the year is this stop on evictions that's at the national level, and we need to do more to protect renters and homeowners in our state, just to again get through this period. And whether that's through grants that we facilitate through the counties, or how we make sure that people are able to make up that gap, it's going to be really important to avoid a larger crisis. So how do we protect those workers as well?
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Really good points. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Commissioner Hanson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too would just add my second to the motion as support. I appreciated what you were beginning to start to talk about on the Social Security. And if you would like to elaborate a little bit on that, I would be happy to hear that. And I appreciate everything that you have said in your background. I think that the constituents of District 45 will be well served with your representation. And so if you'd like to say a few words about the Social Security.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson, so much. And really, this came out of conversations that I was having every day with folks. Again, really early on in the campaign, and they continue to come up. But essentially, this is a double tax. People are taxed when they pay, initially when they pay their Social Security, and then again, when they're receiving the benefits. And this is something that only a handful of states have in place, is a secondary tax on Social Security. That's why I call it a double tax. We are one of 7, and we have the highest rate that created it. And when I was talking to different organizations and think tanks, where this really came out of was a stopgap to fill in some funding shortfalls that we had back in the early 90s. And to me, what I see here is more of a regressive tax. And it's something like, to me, what it seems like is our old grocery tax, where we're taxing basic necessities. We're taxing people that are actually putting money back into the economy, moving it around, making sure that our local dollars are being spent, our small businesses are surviving, and we're just taking it away from them. And so I heard that so often at the doors, that this tax is hurting our folks that live here. And, I think more than anything else, especially in a city like Santa Fe, and in a county like Santa Fe, we have a lot of older folks. What I love is how intergenerational our families are. When you talk to families, it's not just, oh, me and my 2 kids and my dog. It's, abuelos are playing fundamental roles in raising our kids. And so we need to make sure that we're protecting families all the way from the youngest to the oldest. And I think some of the proposals that we're talking about, legalizing legalizing and taxing recreational marijuana and making sure that's done responsibly, not only would cover the difference that, Social Security makes, but it would be an immense, a big change. And when you're thinking about injecting money back into the economy, helping small businesses survive at this time, ending that Social Security tax is going to make a difference.
Thank you. So mentioning the recreational marijuana, I want to make sure I strongly believe that we should allow people to be able to grow their own a few plants. And if they are misbehaving in that regard, they then need to be penalized, but that we allow people to continue to grow their own, maybe 3 to 6 plants. And I'm wondering if you would support that in the legislation.
I've really looked mostly at the recommendations that the governor's task force put together, and that's been really my focus. But look, at the end of the day, part of the push for this is to make sure we're not sending people to jail for minimal crimes that aren't going to hurt, that aren't hurting our society at large, that aren't there aren't violent crimes. And so to that end, I support legislation like you're talking about that is not, impacting and negatively hurting our community. I think, to your point, like if it's limited, as long as we're regulating it overall, I think that's what's most important, is protecting our families and our kids at the end of the day.
And then I have one other question, which is, we are moving towards hopefully a renewable energy economy, and I am wondering how you would feel about a rebate for electric cars. I know a bill, I believe that actually Representative Trujillo had brought this forward as a rebate when you buy an electric car, or a tax credit, and I would like to know how you, if you could support something like that and work on the bill possibly that he brought forward before, and bring that forward again.
So just a little context for this too. So my campaign has not and will not accept any money from oil and gas. Like I've told them and other folks, they're free to come to the table like anybody else if legislation comes before me, but I don't want that influence, because they have such a controlling stake in our revenue. To me, my only concern, my only caveat with a tax credit for electric cars is I haven't seen, and this might just be my own shortfall, but I haven't seen any evidence that it decreases the number of gas-powered cars on the road. And the reason why I mention that is that gas-powered cars right now, the cheapest gas-powered car is half the price of the cheapest electric car new. That's brand new. And so what I'm concerned about is if it's actually like if it isn't incentivizing people to stop using their gas cars, then I don't want to give a tax rebate on that. However, if it does, I'm 100% for it, because to your point, I think we need to really be focusing on the future. We're seeing the climate change genuinely impact our everyday lives. And we can't talk about our future unless we're talking about a sustainable future. And to me, as a parent, I have a 3-year-old. She's going to be going to public school soon. And when she goes to school, that's a messed up choice for. I'm sorry, that's not a fair choice. The parents have to say that we have to keep investing in oil and gas in order to keep our education above water, above the water. And that's not how we're going to resolve the Yazzie case, and that's not how we're going to get back on track. So, honestly, I wonder if it's just my shortfall, but that's my only concern with tax credits, is that they don't actually do what we want them to. So.
Thank you, Linda. I really appreciate you spending the time with us and answering our questions, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hampton. Commissioner Garcia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Representative-elect, first of all, thank you for stepping up to the plate. As a policymaker, it's a little bit challenging these days to step up to the plate and do it. And I appreciate you stepping up to the plate. As an individual that worked for was county staff for 50 so many years, to work with the Roundhouse representatives, the ex-speaker, so on and so forth, senators. I know how it works around there, and I thank you for staying up to the plate, and I really appreciate that. And one of the other things that you said is, what I'm going to bring up is Representative Trujillo, Jim Trujillo. The shoes you're filling is very, very, very big shoes to fill. The gentleman did an excellent job for his district. He's actually chairman of the Tax and Rev Committee, very important these days, and big shoes to fill. And once I said, great job, Representative Trio, for your district. Awesome job for your district. And stepping up to the plate, I really appreciate that. Mrs. Serrato, yes. And another thing is, the district that you represent is a very important district to me, because that's my district as well, on the school board, as well as county commission, as well in La Cienega, upper La Cienega, and once again, the schools. And one of the things I appreciate everything you're saying, and I'm sure you have talked to our local delegation, Ramon and Chris, city councilors, because we all represent that area when it comes to schools and the issues that are happening in that district. I got a call 4 nights ago about somebody that was involved in some sort of alteration, nonetheless. But we all represent that district, as well as Hampton, and a very important district in my eyes. I'm still a little distraught with Chief Holden, sorry. And so, but nonetheless, Representative-elect, and once again, our district, thank you for stepping up. One of the things I would like for you to do is at a local level, you have the schools, you have the city, you have the state, and you have the county. And local government, I worked for local government for 30 years of my life. State is a little different, federal is very different, and local government is totally different. And local government is whenever you go talk to the constituent, say, how's your guardrail? How's this, or whatever it is. But please always keep that in mind, as your local government is where we are at, and to take care of the people. Don't get me wrong, federal government as well. And everything else. So one of the things please keep in mind, very hot topic in the state today is education, healthcare. And so I appreciate you stepping up to the plate, and I look forward to working with you. And please, let's all communicate with our city leaders, state leaders, federal leaders, county leaders, and the educator leaders. But thank you once again for being here, and I appreciate you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Hughes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was very impressed by your economic and your social platform. I was wondering, with your natural resources background, and you did talk about renewable energy, but I wondered if you saw any other opportunities in the environmental area, once you get into the State House.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people forget that outdoor recreation, specifically based on our natural resources here, is the biggest job driver in the state of New Mexico. I think it's a little different because maybe it's a bit more seasonal, but it creates more jobs than even oil and gas. And so we have to protect this, and we have to prevent large-scale spills, large-scale, to be quite frank, disasters from happening here. We have to be very aware of that in terms of, Lanol, for example, or in terms of, we saw the gold mine spill that happened in Colorado and how that impacted our water. And so those resources are very fragile and very important. We know that the town of Clovis is 5 years from literally running out of water. And the case in Texas really did set them back. And so in my opinion, we need to do everything we can to be making sure that our aquifers are clean, that we're making sure that, that as much as we can work with local landowners and work with people whom these wells and everything belongs to, that we're tracking them and saving as much water as we can for our changing population. But look, overall, I think the ETA, the Energy Transition Act that they passed 2 sessions ago, I believe now, I think that was leagues above where anyone else was even looking. It's more ambitious than many other larger states, But I will say we have to make sure that we're doing it responsibly. I think that was a really good piece of that too. That we're not just ending all the jobs near the Navajo Nation and near Farmington. That we're making sure that we're doing it in a way that works. And so how it's going to be implemented is going to be so important. And I think working with our PRC representatives, working with our community members, making sure that happens responsibly works very well. And I think 3, I'll say lastly, is that changing the makeup of our state's revenue. 35 to 40% of our state's revenue is all oil and gas. And if you look at job projections from the past 10 years, they're all based on how well the oil industry is doing. And we have to change that. We have to make sure that we're investing in our infrastructure, making sure that we're investing in broadband, investing in our schools, to Commissioner Garcia's point, that we're making sure that those pieces are solid. So when people are looking to come to New Mexico, they don't say, oh, well, it's so perfect, except that blank. And that we're making sure that we're investing in that infrastructure so that we're creating new opportunities and new revenue sources for our state. And I think that will start to decrease the influence of oil and gas on our state. I think that's a big thing to contend with.
Yeah, thank you. You're very correct with all of that about we need to get rid of our dependence on oil and gas, protect our natural resources, and build on our strengths from there. The other topic that's really close to my heart since I work with homelessness is affordable housing. And I've been trying and made a little progress to get the state to do more in the housing arena. I mean, you probably know housing is very expensive in Santa Fe. And what we're finding is that, this is, instead of Santa Fe getting better, the rest of the state is also starting to suffer from just a lack of housing that people can afford to live in. And I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but I would ask that you work with me on that going forward.
I'm very eager to work with you on this. As a renter myself, this is something that's very near and dear to my heart as well, because there isn't a lot of movement in that market up here, especially. I mentioned it briefly, but evictions are a big concern, and we should all be very aware of them, what's going to happen come in the new year. And when you look, Princeton University has this organization called the Eviction Lab, and they look and they rank the top 50 cities for evictions, and Albuquerque is on that list, unfortunately. And when you look at all of our protections that we have for homeowners or renters, we don't have enough, not compared to a lot of other states. And, one of the issues that we have in our state is that we have a high percentage of working poor, which is people that work full time but still make less than the poverty level. And so that really puts people in a tricky situation where if you have a car breakdown, if you have a child gets sick, if you lose a job even for a few weeks, that can result in an eviction because you don't have that. And so I think I'm really focused on that aspect of it, but also, and as we've seen here in Santa Fe, we're very good at emergency housing. I think that's something we have, but we don't have long-term housing solutions. I've been lucky enough to speak with the folks at Chainbreakers a little bit about some of their work, and I'm eager to keep learning more about how they're working with different levels of government as well. But I really do think that we need to be looking at long-term, both affordable housing and shelters for people and families when they need it.
Great. You've obviously done your homework on that, and I look forward to your thoughts and your energy going into that as well. You have a lot to work on when you get there.
Yeah. It's all pretty words until I get something done.
Well, since everybody else has second, I'll second also. But that's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes, and I want to say thank you to all my commissioners for further questions. I think we covered almost every single concern that we have for the county, and well, maybe not every single one, but definitely some of the major ones. So I appreciate all the comments and questions from my commissioners. I just want to make it clear that the motion in the second is the appointment of Miss Linda Serrato to the District 45 representative position in accordance with Section 2-7C 5B1 NMSA 1978, and second, authorizing for the chair, which is me, Commissioner Roybal, of the Board of County Commissioners to do all the things necessary to proper to effectuate such appointment. So I just want to make sure I read that into the record, and that's what we're voting on. So that's what my motion was. Is that also the seconder's understanding as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so that is the motion in the second. So I'm going to go to a roll call vote. Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
And a yes from Commissioner Roybal. So this appointment passes unanimously from the Santa Fe County Board of County Commissioners. And so I want to first say congratulations to Ms. Serrato, and also as Commissioner Garcia had stated, some big shoes to fill. I know that Representative Jim Trujillo did a great job for his community, and I know that you will do that you will follow in those same footsteps, and I'm sure you have his phone number to call and talk to him about any questions or concerns that you may have. So once again, I just want to thank Commissioner Trujillo for his dedicated service to the state, and thank you for coming forward to carry the torch from this point forward, Ms. Serrato.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner. So we have we're on to item number 3A, and it's announcements. Does anybody have any announcements that you would like to share with your constituents? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Hamilton and a second from Commissioner Hanson. I'm going to go to a roll call vote. Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
And a yes from Commissioner Roybal. So we are adjourned. Thank you all. I appreciate it. You have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye, and best of luck, Linda.